Wow. Unbelievable. So, you know how I said back in Decision Day and how if there's one word I can describe what I witnessed in Decision Day, I would say choking. Because there was a lot of choking going on in Decision Day. There was a choking happening in the supporter shield race, and there was also a choking happening in terms of the playoff race. And if I would be doing the same thing in the playoff round, and I would say if there is one word I can describe what I just witnessed in all four of these games, I would say it's upset. Because holy crap, we had a lot of upsets in this, and I'm pretty sure everybody bracket has been busted by what we just witnessed in some of these resorts. I mean, my bracket kind of been long busted. It kind of got busted in this game when I predicted Dallas was gonna win, and it turns out Portland was the winner in that game. And to be fair, I did say that in the preview this was a 50-50 kind of game because both teams are just bad. Okay, and it's really hard to call who exactly will win it when both teams probably shouldn't be belonging in the playoffs, and if they would have faced another team, they probably would have lost in the knockout round. So, yeah. But I'll talk about this game in a bit. But where do we start in terms of talking about the upset? Why don't we start with LAFC versus RSL, because that's probably the most shocking result out of all of them. Probably this is one of the most shocking kind of result in the past MLS knockout round. And I'll get to the action the fans did in this game, which was pretty disgraceful and very classless. But I'll get to that in just a minute after I talk about what happened in this game. So what happened in this game is that RSL becoming only the second team to win at Bank of California Stadium. They won 3-2 in that game. DeMar Krylak, what a game he has, and he was the difference maker for this RSL team. And I said in the preview how I think for RSL, if they would have any chance of winning this, they need to hope that some of their difference maker in this team can actually step up. And so far we have seen at times they did have some difference maker that has stepped up. And the first name I mentioned is DeMar Krylak. And the reason why I mention it is because he is a guy that, for whatever reason, even though he's not a striker on this team, I know a lot of people when they thought of Krylak, they think he is a striker because he scores so many goals, and that he also scored a hat trick in this season. And what many people are mistaken is that he's not a striker. He's a number 6. He's more of a central defense mid. And at one point of the season, he was deployed as a central defense mid and was deployed as a defensive ability. But ever since Mike Pecky decided to move him a little bit higher and move him in a more attacking position, he has been just banging goals left and right. And he gave RSL a surprising lead in the 21st minute. Unfortunately, that lead was kind of short-lived because Danilo Silva did score a equalizer just 2 minutes later. But how about the goal in the 54th minute? I mean, the way that he hit it and the technique of how he basically kind of reminds me of that Karate Kid kind of move in the movie where he basically did a very similar move that Krylak just did with his goal. But he basically just hit that one with a Karate Kid move, and somehow it just bounced off the post and into the back of the net. And that, I gotta say, probably would be the best goal that we have seen so far in the playoffs, and probably even one of the best goals we have ever seen in the playoffs. I mean, the way, the technique, and how hard that is to execute that. Like, he was standing still to try to hit the ball on the volley, and usually when that happened, it doesn't go very well, because when you try to hit the ball from the volley, you need a little bit of a run up, and he didn't get that run up. So the only way he had to generate the power and probably the accuracy is that he had to jump to try to generate that kind of momentum. And it is definitely not easy to do. Most of the time, even when that happens, the ball usually ends up in rosette. But not in this situation. I mean, this was just kind of one in a million kind of shot that DeMar Krylak puts away into the back of the net. And, you know, Ramirez, of course, by the way, this is actually wrong. It's not 54th. It's actually 51st. He scored the goal in the 51st minute. And that was the equalizer, by the way. And I'm pretty sure at that point, that really stunned LAFC. And, you know, the whole stadium were absolutely stunned of what they seen. And you just kind of had a feeling that at that point, RSL might win this. Because when you see that stuff happening, you know, something that you usually never see in an MLS game, you know that the good luck charm is definitely with RSL. And what do you know? In the 69th minute, Zimmerman, of course, unfortunately was the victim of an own goal. And, you know, I thought Zimmerman was probably the best player in this game because he really was the only one that was playing defense in this team. I mean, the LAFC backline, which I thought coming into this game, and I've been saying how I do have a little problem with this backline. I'm fearing that when they go to the playoffs and when they play inferior team, they would kind of collapse in terms of the backline because it's not very good. Okay, it's very kind of average and above average at best. And in this game, it clearly shone. I mean, that backline was absolutely non-existent, and Zimmerman was the only one that was trying to hold that backline. In fact, one of the worst player, in my opinion, for LAFC in this game came in the backline. Danilo Silva, who, you know, did score a goal in this game, but at the end of the day, he is still considered the worst player in this game because he did nothing in terms of defense. The numerous times that an RSL player was able to get open and letting guys run behind him, it's just incredible. I mean, he had an absolute shocking game, and it was Zimmerman that was one of the guy that's been trying to almost do his duty in terms of defending in that center back role. And, you know, when you only have one guy that is doing that duty, usually that doesn't work out. And, you know, unfortunately for Zimmerman, he did score that own goal, and it's hard to really blame him for that own goal because it was just a deflection. It was a wicked deflection that hits it into the back of the net. But the other thing I also want to criticize about LAFC besides the defense is the attack and the lack of clinical finishing in this team. And clinical finishing has been one of the problem that I haven't mentioned a lot about this team, but there's been time you can clearly see that they are not very good in terms of clinical finishing. And in this game, they had so many opportunities to score more than 2 goals and even extend their lead after Ramirez scored the goal, but they just didn't do it. And also, going forward on the attack, you know, their best player, the guy that they really rely on the attack, Carlos Vela, was absolutely non-existent in this game. I mean, he was nowhere to be found. He was not the one that create those chances for LAFC. And, you know, when you're a big player and the guy that you rely heavily and he's not stepping up, then yeah, you know that you're probably going to be heading in a surprising kind of loss, and that exactly is what LAFC done. But you got to give credit to RSL, and there is a reason why their team anthem is called Believe, because this team really believed. This team played with absolutely no fear. And sure, yes, at times their defense, like LAFC, weren't very, very good, and they had a lot of last-ditch kind of defending and kind of got lucky in some situation where the ball just bounced in their way. But I just love how when a team that is clearly the underdog and they play with no fear, I feel like that should be something that other underdog teams should do. Now, obviously, when that happens, I'm pretty sure not every team that are considered underdog and try to play with no fear would actually work out very well. They might end up getting destroyed. But when you look at RSL and how this is a team that shouldn't even be in the playoffs if it wasn't for what the Galaxy done on decision day, and how they just play with house money in this. Like they have almost like they have no expectation. Like they're happy that they're in this situation, and that, you know what, we'll just play with no fear. We'll just try to prove everybody wrong, and they clearly prove everybody wrong. And when you look at RSL now that their next opponent in the playoffs is against Sporting KC, watch out. This team could actually get into the conference final. The reason why I say that is because when you look at the two matchup that RSL play against Sporting KC, RSL have not dropped a point against Sporting KC. They didn't lose against Sporting KC. And I think if there's one opponent Sporting KC do not want to face in the playoffs, has to be RSL because they have their number. So you never know. This team can actually get to the conference final. And knowing that this season they've been very good at home and how on the road, even though they're still not very good, but they did hold Sporting KC to a 1-1 draw. You never know. Like, this team can actually go to the conference final, and it will be like 2009 all over again. But before, of course, I move on into this game, I want to also address with the fans in terms of this game. And like I said, it was pretty disgraceful of what LAFC fan did in this game, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people on Reddit and also on Twitter has mentioned it. So basically, throughout the game, LAFC decided to throw trash and throw a bottle onto the field, and they do that every time when there's a bad call. In fact, they even do it in an incident in stoppage time where Walker Zimmerman, who probably should have been sent off in this incident when he basically kind of high-kneed Justin Glad in the face, and the fact that he didn't get a red card and not even a yellow card in that incident is kind of surprising. But what's even more surprising and more disgraceful is the fans just decided to throw trash. Like, seriously, you just witnessed one of your own player almost seriously injure another player, and you decided to throw trash on the field? I mean, that is absolutely disgraceful. And even Christian Ramirez, he literally had to, go to the fans and tell them to stop doing it. And I'm pretty sure there's two reasons why he decided to do it. One, it's because that's just such a dishonorable kind of action and such an unsportsmanlike action by the fans. But it's also the fact that they're just wasting their own time. And the other thing that I also want to say about this game is that the ref in this game, Mark Geiger, who obviously, I know whenever Mark Geiger refereeing a game, there's always a lot of controversy, and certainly in this game there was that big controversy of why in the world did he decide to let 10 minutes of stoppage time when there was only 7 allowed in this game. And even though there was that long stoppage, that was because of what LAFC did. So yeah, that was also a very kind of disgraceful thing that he does, but it's none other than what the fan did with just throwing trash. And it wasn't just like one or two fans, and just some fans decided to be kind of a-hole and basically decided to throw trash. It was almost everybody from both ends. They were throwing trash. The 3-2-5-2, some of the fans were throwing trash, and then in the south end, some of the people were also throwing trash. So it's not just a minority group, it's pretty much almost everybody. And then obviously they had the Puto chants at the end of the game, well, right near the end of the game. And this was an issue in the first game ever at Bank of California Stadium when they played the Sounders, where they had the Puto chant, and I thought for sure LAFC would address this issue. And the fact that they didn't do it is just another example of the club. That is kind of another example of the club being very disgraceful, and I think MLS got to do something about this, because I know in the past we have seen situation where fans are kind of out of control and throwing trash on the field. I mentioned this earlier in the season when Orlando City did it, where they were throwing trash on the field. Well, it's the same thing here. And I think in that incident, I think MLS did fine Orlando City. They got to do the same thing with LAFC. And I think it should be a harsher punishment because of not only throwing trash on the field, but also the Puto chants, and how they were supposed to address that in the first game of the season. And the fact that they failed to do that in this game just kind of shows a lot. And I don't want to really just kind of overly criticize a lot of LAFC fan and just say every LAFC fan is evil. No, I don't think every LAFC fan are mean. In fact, the 2 times that I went to Bank of California Stadium this year, I met a couple of LAFC fans that are just generally nice. Like, they're a very nice people, and I wouldn't think in any way they would be the person that would decide to throw trash on the field. But it's just that there's just always these minority people, and just these people decided to either get caught up in the moment, or they just don't care anymore. And at the end of the day, LAFC's gotta have to do something about that, and also the league has to punish LAFC in terms of what the action that they did in this game. But yeah, moving on, and I think I spent 15 minutes in this because there was a lot of talk about this. And let's move on to the other upset. And Columbus, for the second year in a row, they won in a penalty kick shootout. They walked into a very hostile environment and able to walk away with a victory. And for the second year in a row, Zach Steffen was the hero. And I think when this game went into the penalty kick shootout, there was no doubt that Columbus was probably going to win this game, because you know what Zach Steffen did in the past, and you just had a feeling that he's going to do it again. And lo and behold, they did it again. And Zach Steffen in the penalty kick shootout actually saved both Wayne Rooney and Lucho Acosta penalty. I mean, two of the most influenced players for this DC United team. And in big spots, it's hard to believe that they decide to kind of choke in big spot. And speaking of Rooney and Acosta, they were non-existent in this game. I mean, all that kind of good work they did in the regular season, and all that talk of this Lucharu and Rooney connection, yeah, that was non-existent in this game. And you also got to give credit to Columbus in terms of shutting down that kind of combination and just really frustrate Acosta and Rooney all night long. But, Zach Steffen, once again, the hero in this game. And by the way, the penalty kick shootout, boy, this was one of the worst penalty kick shootout I ever witnessed. I mean, 5 of the 10 penalty were missed, including the one that Columbus had a chance to win the game, and somehow they still missed it. And I forgot who was the player that missed that penalty, but he hit it off the post. And eventually the penalty ended when De Leon basically hits it over the bar. And I don't want to say De Leon went from hero to zero in that instant, because De Leon did score a goal that forced this penalty kick shootout, and this goal was very similar to the Krylak goal, where he kind of did like a karate kick kind of move on a volley, and basically it hits into the back of the net. But I think it's hard to call him hero to zero at that moment, because when you are at that moment where it's really all comes down to this, like, if you missed it, you're gonna lose, and if you puts it away, then we'll go to sudden death. And with De Leon, and how I know he is an experienced kind of MLS player, but you always have that moment where even the best player in the world would miss a big penalty. Just look at what Messi did in the Copa America, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate from a lot of Messi fan that is in there. They're gonna really dislike the video, but even the best player in the world would miss a penalty. So I don't really want to blame De Leon as the person that lost this game, but I really think what lost this game for DC is the fact that the Lucho Acosta and Wayne Rooney connection just was disconnect in this game, and they just really struggled to try to going forward and potentially find a way to score those goals that they did. I mean, they did score a goal early on, but that was because of Zach Steffen, who I think that was the only bad moment that he had, where he basically should have caught a ball that was crossed into the box, and that of course led to brilliant scoring the goal. But another guy I also haven't really talked about, and again I messed up in terms of the scoring. I gotta double check in this, because this is wrong. I think it's the 49th minute. But Higuain, another guy that also stepped up in this game, and I don't think it should be a surprise, the fact that he has stepped up in this game, because we've seen this before from Federico Higuain and from Pipa, he has always tends to step up in this game. Whenever October comes, and well, not October, but when November comes and when the playoff time comes, he always find a way to step up and be the difference maker, which is one of the reasons why Columbus has been having a good run in the playoffs in the last couple of seasons. It's because of the impact of Higuain and how big he means to this team. And for Columbus, yeah, you never know. It could happen again where they can somehow make a good run, and they play against the Red Bulls. And while the Red Bulls, I still think that they will probably win this, and they are of course the better team. You never know. Like, after what we saw in the knockout round, anything is pretty much possible. And as for DC United, I know this is a very disappointing way to end the playoffs, because you would think that they would be one of the dark horse in the playoffs. But you also got to admire what they did throughout the season, and how not many teams would have just, heading into the second half of the season, would think that they would be anywhere close and even host a home playoff game when they're sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. So you got to give good credit for DC United and that run that they've been on. And now next season, certainly they need to try not to have that similar situation where they had to make a late kind of second half resurgence to potentially get themselves in the playoffs. And maybe they need to add some more talent on this team, because only rely on Rooney and Acosta is probably not gonna work out very well in the future. But now gonna be quickly mention these two games, because let's be honest, the game that everybody want to talk about was yesterday's game. Yesterday's game was definitely much more exciting than what happened with the game on Halloween. And this game between the Timbers versus Dallas, which we saw the only red card handed in this knockout round, with Mabiela getting sent off in the 58th minute after denying a goal score opportunity. And when you look at this game, this was exactly what I expected. It was a game where there was not really a lot of action. It was definitely a game not for the neutral to watch, and it was very hard to watch this game because both teams really struggled to create any chances. I mean, Dallas, I think they were probably the better team in terms of holding position and tried to create chances. But one of the problems for Dallas in this game is that despite the fact that they had majority of the ball and they try, and I would say try with kind of a quotation mark, because throughout this game they really didn't do much. Like, they had a lot of shot in this game, but most of them were off target, and most of the shot the Portland goalkeeper didn't even had to do a lot on that. And I think that this goes back to the problem that I've been saying with Dallas, and I think everybody been saying about Dallas, of how they just don't have a goal scorer on this team. They might have a goal scorer that will find a way to somehow score for them, but when that does not happen, like it has been for the past couple of games, this is exactly what happens to them in this game. And it's hard to believe that even though they were a man up in this game, you would think that Dallas would find a way to score a goal when up a man. But after the sending off, it was pretty much the same thing. Dallas was still looking like a team that just basically couldn't figure out how to break down this Timbers defense. And eventually Valeri, who he was really the difference maker in this game. And you kind of now start seeing a pattern where for these games there's always this one difference maker that was able to win their game and maybe to make their team move on to the next round. In this game it was DeMar Krylak. In this game I would say it's Higuain and also Zach Steffen, but in this game it was just Valeri. And Valeri, like Higuain, has stepped up in the past in terms of in these big games, and pretty much throughout his career as a Portland Timber player. I mean, how many times Valeri has single-handedly carried this team throughout his career at this Timbers team is just incredible. And in this game, he's shown that kind of quality, scoring a free kick in the 23rd minute and then scoring on a counterattack in the 71st. Hedges, of course, got a consolation goal for Dallas and was hoping, gave them a little bit hope that maybe they can get another one back, but unfortunately, Portland, of course, moving on. And now they are moving on in the next match where they are going to be playing none other than the Seattle Sounders in the knockout round, which is also a reason why a lot of people will want to thank RSL for this, because now that just sets up the Cascadia Derby for the conference semifinal, and that is going to be a delicious kind of matchup. But for FC Dallas, yeah, this is a very frustrating loss, and it's a very frustrating way to end the season, and kind of similar to last season where they kind of like faded away in the second half of the season. Although I think last season it was much more than just faded away. They completely fall off a cliff last season. It was kind of the same case this season where they only scored 4 goals from the beginning of October to this game. So yeah, that kind of explains how there is a lot of problem in terms of goal scoring with this team and creating chances, because they just don't have a playmaker and they just don't have a goal scorer. And then finally, moving on into the last game, I'm just going to quickly mention about this game because, look, everybody expected this game. And this was a carbon copy of what we saw in Decision Day, not only with the score, but just the overall play. NYCFC, of course, scored an early goal, just like they did in Decision Day with Tajuri Shradi. Villa, of course, scored a second goal to make it 2-0. And again, it looks very similar again from Decision Day, where NYCFC were up 2-0 after just 30 minutes, and eventually they would make it 3-1. Well, actually, they were at 2-1 at that point, but when you look at the first 30 minutes in Decision Day, there was no point where Philly looked like they were going to potentially get that equalizer with the dominance that NYCFC showed. Now, there was a bit of a controversy in this game with a penalty that should have been given for the Union. I mean, I think it was Ben Sweat that was sliding in the box to try to get the ball away from Bedoya, but instead he took out Bedoya in the box, and I think that 100% should have been a penalty. I don't know why they didn't even look at VAR in that instant, which also gave another example of all those VAR haters of why VAR does not work in this league. But I think even with that goal, NYCFC just still look just by far the better team. They once again play Philly off the park. The Union, I thought they would probably find a way to address what just happened a couple of days ago, and I thought Jim Curtin was gonna probably make some adjustment. Yeah, he didn't make any adjustment in this game. He basically made the same mistake in the Decision Day game where they lost 3-1, and what do you know? They lost 3-1. And what do you also know is that Corey Burke scored the only goal for them, just like what happened on Decision Day. And, I understand why Union fans are going to be upset about this result. And I know they're going to be even more upset because they're the only team that were considered underdog that did not win this game, and that they really want Jim Curtin to get out of their club. Like, a lot of people are just calling Curtin out right now. But I think in some way, I feel like that's a little bit harsh on Jim Curtin. I know Curtin is probably not the best coach in the world and probably might be a coach that won't be sticking around with the Union in the future, but I just think what he did this season and how he took a team that was just awful in the beginning of the season, and then he took a big risk of bringing a lot of these homegrown players, bringing guys like Corey Burke. Actually, I don't know if Corey Burke was a homegrown player. He came up from the USL and bring a ton of homegrown player that is very unproven. Guys like McKenzie and McKenny and also Medunian and Fafa Pico and all these guys. You would think that would be a crazy thing for Curtin to do, and that he was taking a lot of risks in terms of putting these guys are just completely unproven, and if it doesn't go right, then he's going to find himself getting fired. And what do you know? It turns out that it works for him perfectly, and I feel like by that, I think that should avoid him to getting fired. And I think Union fans are just being a little bit too harsh in terms of want them to fire Curtin. Now, if Curtin next season, if he does kind of the same thing with the Union that to this season, then maybe he does deserve the firing. And if the Union does get off to a bad start, then yeah, Curtin will probably be gone. He's definitely not been loved by Union fans. A lot of Union fans hated him and want him to get out of the club for the past couple of seasons. But I just think what he did this season, and yes, I know this team, once again, it's like Groundhog Day once again for the Union. Whenever there's a big game happening, they always tend to find a way to lose. And that was the case once again in this game against NYCFC. But, if next season, if there's going to be improvement on this team, then you can fake me for saying that Curtin should be staying for this club. And as for NYCFC, it was just a cruising kind of victory. They probably are the only team in this playoff knockout round with just no problem whatsoever, and pretty much just go through the next round where they play, of course, against Atlanta. And I know I've been getting hate from Atlanta fans, and I'm definitely saw that in the comment section in that prediction video. But guess what? We'll see how this is gonna go. We'll see what NYCFC will do. I think it's gonna be a heck of a matchup, and certainly would be a close kind of matchup with NYCFC and Atlanta just facing off each other. And I won't go overly excited, and I won't just criticize all those people that criticize me of not picking Atlanta going through if NYCFC does win in that 2-leg. But I'll just say that I kind of knew that this was gonna happen, and it looks like it's shaping that it is gonna happen with all these kind of upsets that we had in the knockout round. But either way, that is pretty much it for this video. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.